Assalamu alaikum. We are back with you today with a new edition of News and Views at ICTV. If you recall, we started this News and Views program at a time when the election 2000 was the center stage of the whole news spectrum. And now, after having done several programs on the election 2000, we are finally at a point when we can say, welcome, Mr. President. Finally, the American people have shown the patience and the desire to maintain the highest democratic values and reached a solution. It may not be a solution which is pleasant or welcomed by everyone, but there is no doubt about the fact that everyone honors that solution. Everyone is behind it. And once a president is elected, the differences are buried and the country comes first. That is a tribute to a great nation. And I'm very happy today that this great nation has set a record, a leading record for all those countries who take pride in good democracy. Congratulations to the people of America and welcome to the President, Mr. George W. Bush. Today, I have with me two experts, a historian, Mr. Ali Shakiri. Very welcome, Mr. Shakiri.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam. And my second guest here is Mr. Kidwai, who has been here in this program before. Very welcome, Mr. Kidwai. Wa alaikum assalam. Okay. Now that we have the President, there are a lot of things which we need to talk about for future. But let's first talk about the decision which helped the problem to be solved for the American people, the decision, the verdict of the Federal Supreme Court. And I would request Mr. Shakiri to briefly tell us what is the structure, how many people, how many justices voted for and how many voted against.
Good afternoon again, and thank you for being here with you. Then from the 9 justices in Supreme Court, for the decision was come 5-4. Decision, if I could say it, I could split it with 3 ways. It was 3, and it was 2, and it was 2. How could it be? 7 of them together, 7 against 2. They say that they have a trouble with the way of Supreme Court in Florida counting this recount.
The 7 of those?
7 of those.
The 7 of them thought that there was some problem with the way of counting.
Exactly,
okay.
problem,
Right.
nothing else. 5 of them decided 5 against 4, to not let recount goes through. That's why every radio and TV they say 5-4, 5-4.
Okay.
Okay. From those 5, just 3 of them, which is Clarence Thomas and Chief Justice Rehnquist and Scalia. Those 3, they were a leader of stopping this vote, recounting vote by hand in Florida. But 2 others, which were O'Connor and Kennedy, they were not that much against recounting, but they say they don't have time. Since they say they don't have time, then we have to finish it on December 12. In dissent, they mentioned that we did not want to stop it, but we don't have a time. And the answer from the other side is interesting to know it. They say it look like a kid killing his parents and saying, since I'm orphan, please forgive me. He says the Justice Department stopped the counting. Then now you say we don't have time. But anyway, finalized was 5-4. 5-4, they pass to not recounting by hand.
And what did the 2 dissenting judges say? They wanted it to continue the recounting or what?
The 4, 5 against 4.
Yeah.
The 4 says the recounting must go, and they say
continue. You mean?
Continue. But not this way. Like 2 justices, Stephen and Souter, Both of them, they've been appointed by Republicans. All those 7, they've been Republican, right? 2 Democrats. 2 been appointed by Democrats, 7 of them been appointed by Republican. Those 5, which I mentioned very clearly the name, and people didn't know it. Clarence Thomas, Chief Justice Rehnquist, and Scalia, those are the 3 leaders, plus the 2, O'Connor and Kennedy. They say, no counting, stop it. The first 3, they say stop it no matter what.
Yeah, what about the rest?
The 2 says, we stop it because we don't have time. The other 2, which is Stevenson and Souters, they say we have a trouble by this kind of counting, but we could find a universal way in Florida to recount it. And since Al Gore announced that a few times, I'm ready to go with universal and count all the states, but they say it's late to go. But the dissent said, but the dissents, the 4 dissent says, no matter it's late, we could find a way and count them and finish them until 18.
Okay.
But the other 5 says no, must be finished in 12.
So the decision is obviously not a unanimous decision. It was a very difficult decision. They tried to solve the problem, and it looks that the time was essence here. The time was so important that it looks that the justices' decision came in, and they thought that this process does not need to go any further than what it has gone. That is generally the impression carried by. And it was a difficult decision. But at this point, it was difficult for Gore particularly, and perhaps it has a lot of things to consider for Bush. Yesterday, Gore, today, because we are recording today, the day the decision was announced, Gore made a speech, and that speech has been hailed as one of the best speeches of his career. I think he came up as a statesman. He took the challenge. He put the country ahead of anything else. He put it before, and that was a great speech.
Just moments ago, I spoke with George W. Bush and congratulated him on becoming the 43rd President of the United States. Now the U.S. Supreme Court has spoken. Let there be no doubt. While I strongly disagree with the court's decision, I accept it. I accept the finality of this outcome, which will be ratified next Monday in the Electoral College. And tonight, for the sake of our unity as a people and the strength of our democracy, I offer my concession.
Later on, Bush addressed, and his speech was telecast. And I think Bush also made a very good speech, a great speech, and showed the intention of trying to heal the wounds and getting the nation together and moving forward as a nation again.
Now it is time to find common ground and build consensus to make America a beacon of opportunity in the 21st century. I'm optimistic this can happen. I was not elected to serve one party, but to serve one nation. The President of the United States is the President of every single American, of every race and every background. Whether you voted for me or not, I will do my best to serve your interests, and I will work to earn your respect.
Mr. Kidwai, I would like you to comment on the speeches that you've seen. What did you think of the speech of Mr. Bush?
Well, I'm an old debater from Pakistan, from the college days, if you might recall, so I really have an interest in speech making and listening to speeches, and of course everybody is in agreement that both the speeches were well done, but the thing that underlies in some of this thing is as to how much is the input of the speech writers and how much is actually the candidate or the president-elect or the losing candidate doing it.
Bush is the winning candidate. So
right.
I'm looking for your comments on the speech of President Bush, because you voted Bush.
Yeah, well, as a Democrat, I voted for Bush, listening to our leadership saying that he had reached out to immigrants and to Muslims and Pakistanis.
Please hold your thoughts on that, because I want to have a greater detailed comment on that. But I want your evaluation of the delivery of the speech of the man as he appeared on the screen. What did you think of that speech that he made after he was no doubt the 43rd President of USA?
Well, he's elect, so this is his real speech will be when he addresses the two houses of Congress next in January. But I was speaking about the speech because one of the main elements of the speech was his effort to reach out to the Democrats and to the people that did not vote for him, and which included, I mean, that has been one of the focus of his candidacy, that I'm a uniter and not a divider, and the whole dynamics of the speech, i.e. being introduced by the Florida Democratic speaker and speaking before a majority of the Florida legislature in that chamber. So the whole atmosphere was healing atmosphere and reaching out and realizing that he has to build bridges, and that he cannot be like Newt Gingrich was just a few years ago, and that it would not be a combative presidency.
Good. So that augurs well for the country. And Mr. Shakiri, what did you think of Gore's speech?
Looked like last night when I was watching and listening to the comments come mainly from Republicans, they admire him a lot. When any speech come from Democrat and been admired by many hardliner Republican, and must be very, it's got
very valid point.
But I think, honestly, I made this last 30 or 40 interview I made the last month with different television and radios. To me, as American, Iranian American, unity of American people behind the president is important. It was important. And to me, point of view of counting vote by hand in Florida did not come because of I am Democrat or Green or Republicans. It come from fairness. Because I thought this way, our Bush, when he's president, we are behind him. Doesn't matter, we disagree with him. Disagreement is no problem.
Yes.
We have to live in the society with disagreement. Gore delivered very patriotic. I know that. I remember what head of the campaign of Mr. Reagan, he mentioned a week ago, I know Gore and Clinton, they're going to be behind Bush. But he said he's not sure the people, they're going to honor him. Remember you mentioned honor.
Yes.
But he said, he quoted one thing. In 1876, one time in the history of the United States, exactly was like that.
Right.
And the trouble was in Florida. The same state.
Again. History repeats itself, doesn't it? Huh?
It was Florida. And the judge, he was a judge. They made 7 Democrats, 7 Republicans in the committee, and 1 independent in between. He was Republican, but he was a judge. And he's gonna go and make it fair to run the society. Then finally they decide what they're gonna do. This judge resigned from the bench and changed to his political view and Republican and voted to be for President Hayes to go on the White House. But now I quote again from another Republican, Pat Robertson. He's a most extreme Republican. You know what he says? He advised us on TV, 700 Club last week. Even I disagree with that gentleman. You know, he's far right. But you know what he says? He said, this gentleman Hayes, for his 4 years, walking on the street, doing everything to reconcile people. But everywhere he walked, they call him theft, they call him vote, count, vote, count. These days, what you heard everywhere you go, count, vote, count. And I'm hoping that the people with disagreement, they respect and welcome President-elect Bush, which I do. But I'm not sure those people, they've been banded from their right. They're going to forgive it so easily.
Going back to Gore's speech, my impression was that Gore touched upon all the important things that he needed to say at that time. He definitely and very clearly asserted that he is only going to put America first. and not the personal differences. Points of view can continue, but as far as the country goes, country is first. And then he promised all complete support of himself and his team to the new president. And I thought he made, and it had a right mix of a little bit of humor and firmness and determination, and it looked very good. I'm a little curious to know, at the end of the speech, I heard some crowd chanting, Gore for four, Gore for four, Gore for four. Now, did you hear that?
Yeah.
You heard that?
Yeah, and I was surprised at the scene, and people could not understand what was being said, but it was definitely Gore for four.
Gore for four.
Yeah.
So what they're saying is that Gore should be the candidate for 2004. So, do you see that possibility happening, or is that the end of his political career for the presidential up? I just want a quick comment from both of you on that.
Since I have other main important points to cover, I think more educational, I'm not going to predict anything. But he's young, he's my age, 52, and he's going to have some future. Mr. Bush is the same age. I wish them both luck and happiness, but I think I'm not going to make a prediction. You know why? Because you never know what's going to happen in the next 4 years.
Right. And Mr. Kidwai?
Oh yeah, that is the troubling part of this whole debate is are things being done in the national interest, in the long-term future of America, which is the best, is how much was the speech written to pacify the Democrats and to make Gore a viable candidate 4 years from now. Those are the things that really are troubling, because at one level, I mean, like Governor Bush said that I am the president of all Americans, and when we vote for president, that's one office that we vote for regardless of your party affiliations. And I always find it interesting that we have these staunch people on either Democratic or Republican side that seem to be more interested in their petty politics than in the national interest. And that's why even this 5-4 vote for the Supreme Court is very troubling, because it broke down on party lines. And I know you made an eloquent speech or talk in the beginning of we are a tribute to a great nation, and we are certainly the leading democracy in the world. But this election should really give us some thought, and we really have to have some serious problems that we really have to address.
Absolutely. I think, I paid a tribute, and I stand by my tribute, because given this situation in a country which was less used to democracy, who had people believed had a weaker commitment to democracy, this could have flared up. This could have gone to the streets. There could have been a law and order problem. That's what I think is a great thing. The nation has been patient. But I also agree with you totally, Mr. Kidwai, because the depth of the difference and the way of thinking is much larger.
Yeah.
It's
but
much larger.
The people are divided, and there isn't the passion for the candidates. So if you just change the names, if we had Pat Buchanan on one side and Ralph Nader or the Green, who were the candidates, I mean, people would have been on the streets.
Right, and the streets actually didn't appear to be too far away, because a lot of has been said that this issue is not only of presidency. This is an issue. It's a civil rights issue.
Yeah, but that's why the good and the bad was the speech or the rally that Jesse Jackson held yesterday. And the great thing is that Governor Bush, or President-elect Bush, took a call from Jesse Jackson today, and I heard Jeb Bush say that he has not talked to him in a couple of days because he's not been able to get through. But evidently Jesse Jackson had a nice conversation, and they're going to meet. So that bodes very well for
that bodes very well. I agree with you. Yes. Yes.
If you would like me, I could insert some historical.
Sure,
event
sure.
with this.
That's why I have my historian here, Mr. Shakiri. You are a reservoir of all historical facts, and we want to touch on it.
Thank you for a nice comment. But by the way, this Supreme Court making a president, selecting or electing or judging on a president, is the first time in history.
Yeah.
We made history again.
You think this is the first time in history?
First time.
Because practically, you're absolutely right.
Okay, I'll tell you why.
The president has been selected by the majority of one vote.
Oh, yeah, not because of that. I know.
Why?
Not because of that. I'll tell you. Never ever Supreme Court of U.S. as a federal instrument interfere the state instruments. First time in the history. I'm so optimistic. I'm also always like you behind the president-elect. Doesn't matter who's going to be.
Yeah.
I always say that. But let me tell you, when that's done, I don't see. I'm trying to convince myself every night. How am I going to convince the other guys? Forget about Republican and Democrat, green or black or that. See, 151 million people did not vote for this president. Again, 100 million did not participate. 51 million other side. As you say, he is a president of minority, not president of majority. Right. And those people, they are people. They are not party's element. They are not like J.C. Jackson to goes and make the black to cool down and make it civilized demonstration. The main duty of J.C. Jackson went to Florida to civilize those protests,
right.
Not let it be wild. But people in the United States, they are not J.C. Jackson, they are not Clinton, they are not Gore, they are not Bush. That's why they're going to ask one thing. The first time which the Supreme Court selected a president in a state, letting the people to recount by hand. The same thing they've done in Florida. For 6 other counties were Republican. The same thing they've done it in Texas. The same thing they've done it by hand in New Mexico. Washington State, everywhere around the nation. First time Supreme Court was. I finished my word in this statement. Stevenson is a Republican. He's appointed by General Ford. What did he say? He says, since the identity of the winner is not clear, but certainly the loser's identity is clear. The judges on eyes of the people. This is very strong. This is Republican writing against the decision of the Supreme Court because he knew, and now he knows. Those 3 people, Clarence Thomas, Chief Justice Rehnquist, and Scalia, they are ideological people.
Are we then, in that case, what you say is, apart from the general approach and attitude of reconciliation shown by both, what you're saying is that this could be an extremely important moment in history.
I know people like Gore, they have a long way to convince people. Gore has duty because Bush cannot. Bush cannot convince the other side. Gore, J.C. Jackson, Clinton, those people, they have to go all around the nation and make people behind.
So in other words, what you're saying is that Bush's success depends less on Bush's own strategy as compared to Gore's strategy?
Exactly, because I told you in 1876, as Pat Robinson, the Republican, mentioned, even the president was Republican. He says he was a nice guy like Bush, but he walked all around the nation, urging them. People says, you stolen. People are going to say around the nation next 2 months. When they come to vote in Florida next 2 months, and they say, oops, another president, another wrong guy. You know what the people are going to say? Why, Mr. Bush, didn't you order on November 8th to recount Florida? Same thing, Al Gore demanded.
Okay, Mr. Kidwai,
yes.
This is becoming very interesting. What would you think that Bush needs to do? I mean, we have some idea from Mr. Shakiri what Gore needs to do. But let's think, what does Bush needs to do as the 43rd President of the United States to reconciliate to bring the nation together and heal the damage that could have been done for such a prolonged conflict?
I respectfully disagree a little bit with Mr. Shakri in that I don't think, since there was such a strong support for either Bush or Gore in this election, that the average people will be that turned off from President-elect Bush regarding the recount and all that. This thing will, the thing interesting about our times is that we go from crisis to crisis, and when we are in a crisis, that is such a hot item that you cannot escape it. But once that crisis is over, let's say the downing of the Yemen crisis where the boat was sunk. It's in the news, but then nobody follows up. It goes on page 19 or 29. And so the real challenge for the next president is to deal with the Congress, and with the Senate being 50-50 and with the Congress being so close with just a few votes, that he has more than the Democrats to get the programs pushed. And the real troubling aspect, especially the left wing of the Democrats has been cooled down in the last few years and all that. They really don't stir that much trouble or talk that much. But the right wing of the Republican Party has all kind of plans. And in fact, Bush had problem with them as a governor in Texas too. And so how he can pacify them so that he can pass the programs that are appealing to the mainstream of both the Republican and Democrats and are good for the country. And that's the challenge that he faces, and I hope he comes up to it.
Okay, Mr. Kidwai and Mr. Shakri, we will talk a little more about it, but let's have a little break. And gentlemen and viewers, I want to say that this discussion is going to continue, and we're going to look at the possibility of the various steps that Gore and Bush need to take to bring the kind of unity and the union that makes the country go forward. And we'll also hopefully be able to talk a little bit more about the situation in India, Pakistan, and in that part of the world. So stay with us.
Come join us. Come fly the Pakistan International Airlines skies. It's feeling, the caring, it's just like coming home.
With Pakistan International Airlines, it's just like coming home. Great people to fly with.
Welcome back to News and Views at ICTV. We know that historical judgment has been passed. This judgment will make history, but probably history will also judge this judgment in time to come. We are here to talk about it. And coming back to our historian, Mr. Ali Shakiri, just like on a lighter vein, how many times have the sons of the presidents have become presidents?
As a person, I love history. I better mention myself this way.
Okay.
2 times happened. One, John Quincy Adams, the 6th president of the United States. He was son of Adam, the 2nd president of the United States. Because Washington was the first, Adam was the 2nd, Jefferson was the 3rd. Then John Quincy Adams was the 6th. He was the son of the president. And the other one was grandson of the President Harrison. President Harrison, by the way, William Harrison, he became president and he died immediately. How did he die?